Ashley Berges here today. And today I want to talk about a story, a personal story that a colleague told me, and how that story directly relates to a lot of issues in our life. When we call out a situation and we get in trouble for doing it. Let's talk about it. So the other day, a colleague and I were talking, and he was telling me a story. And it was interesting. And he said when he was a young kid, he was in the pool with his family, and they were all swimming around, and his older cousin was in the pool, and the older cousin started screaming because he said, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, there's poop in the pool, there's poop in the pool," and freaks out, and lo and behold, yes, there is. There is poop in the pool, okay? Human poop in the pool. So my friend's mother grabs the cousin from inside the pool, pulls him outside the pool, grabs him, and starts spanking the living crap out of him, okay? Now remember one thing. This particular person did not poop in the pool. It wasn't their poop. They were merely showing and bringing to attention that there was poop in the pool. So why did he get hurt? Why did he get spanked? And why did that happen? So this is very interesting because I think this directly relates to a lot of issues that we are dealing with. So what happened here is you're dealing with people that don't like to deal with the truth. When the truth is called out, they don't want to hear it. They would rather swim around with the poop in the pool and everybody know it, but nobody say anything. And what I've found is that many of us might find ourselves in relationships right now, in a family dynamic, in a marriage, with a spouse, with a sister, brother, work colleague, that when you've called something out to a situation, something that they've done, it's not worked out very well. You've called it out in hopes that you could have communication about it and talk about it, but what happened? Quite the opposite, right? Almost as if you never called anything out. And all of a sudden you're getting clobbered and in trouble because you've called something out that wasn't right, but yet they're not going to take responsibility for what happened. And the reason why I like the story about the poop in the pool is that it's interesting. When somebody does poop in the pool and you know who it is and you call it out, you still can get in trouble for that because we live in certain realities nowadays with other people living in that same reality where people don't want to look at the truth of their actions. And they don't want to take responsibility for what they do either. And so what we find ourselves in is when we are bringing something to light and we are sharing that with people, with them, and saying, hey, I didn't appreciate this, or hey, let's look back at this situation because I didn't feel warm and fuzzy when you went on and did this without my permission or what have you. It didn't make me feel that good. When you bring something up like that, usually what's the response? It's the, you don't trust me. It's the, I do everything for you and you don't care about me. It's the, I have done all this for you and I have literally slaved for you, and this is what I get back. Okay? You also could get the silent treatment, massive passive aggression, the victim reality, right? And there we are, and we're just like, all we did was point out the poop. That's all we did, okay? And it's interesting because I realize that many of us are accepting this reality, and why are we accepting this reality? See, that's interesting. Why? Why do we accept it? Because think about it. How many relationships do you have in your life right now that you've pointed out the poop and nothing got resolved? Matter of fact, it never even really got talked about it because you brought it up and then the conversation completely changed, right? And everything you were trying to say got completely swallowed up by this entire other agenda. And then next thing you know, you find yourself having to jump and dig out of a hole that's been created because now you are the asshole, okay? And it's your problem. And I've realized that this is interesting because many of us were raised in this dynamic. We were raised this way. We grew up doing this. So many of you, it might be with mom. It might be with dad. It might be with grandma or grandpa who raised you, aunt and uncle. And when something went wrong and you called it out, you got punished. You didn't get rewarded, you were punished. You might have been punished physically like my colleague's cousin was, or perhaps you were shunned. Perhaps you were given the silent treatment. Maybe you were kind of messed with in a passive-aggressive way where you realized after that point, I don't want to bring up the poop again. I'm just going to stay quiet because anytime I bring up anything that's wrong here, I get in trouble. Does that feel similar? Does that feel like something you've experienced in your life? And I've realized that the more that we experience that in our life, the more we allow people to do crazy things. The more we allow people to do things and we just, it's just not worth rocking the boat. You know, I don't like what's happened. I'm not really happy about what just took place, but I'd rather deal with that than deal with the conflict. I mean, because there's definitely going to be conflict. And it's challenging. And some of us are in living arrangements where anytime we bring this up or point the truth out, we get clobbered, right? So how do we deal with this? You know, and I think the first thing that we have to realize before we can even try to turn the tables around, because I think you know, one of the most challenging pieces of this is that a lot of times it doesn't feel like there's any solution. And you know why it feels like there's no solution? Because the other person's not going to allow there to be a solution. The only solution that the other person's going to allow is for you to be quiet, stop talking about it, and apologize. And that's what really, really irks me. Recently, I dealt with a situation like this, and it reminded me of a lot of different things. It reminded me of a little of my upbringing. And, you know, I'll talk about an example right now. And we don't have to go into complete specifics, but I'll get as specific as I need to be. I had a close family member of mine that decided that they were going to make my high school graduation. And they did it at the very last minute. And they showed up right before we were leaving to the theater or the assembly or wherever we were going for the graduation. And I remember they showed up and they were wearing one of those beer dispensing cups. So you know how the hat was, and there was 2 cups that were inside of it, and they had 2 straws that came from both sides, right? And it went into their mouth, but instead of beers, they were margaritas, right? So they showed up to the house, and as you would realize at this point in time, I think they got to this golf tournament at probably 9 a.m., and it was probably 7 o'clock at night, so obviously extremely intoxicated. And it's interesting because, you know what, I remember I was graduating high school, and I remember the shit was right there, the poop in the pool, right? And it was right there, and I remember the only person that called it out was another family member. But when the other family member called it out, the person that they were calling it out about clobbered them and said, "You're one to talk." And then they went off on a diatribe of how this person hasn't been there and how they're making judgment calls and how they're trying to ruin this event for me. And, you know, I didn't think about that till the other day, till we were talking about the poop in the pool. But, I mean, how many times when you were growing up was it a poop in the pool scenario where it really did feel not that good? I mean, if you looked at the concept of the jobs that your parents were doing, they were doing maybe C or D work, right? I mean, seriously, let's be honest. And we kept giving them the pass because why? Because we were a young kid and we didn't have money to go buy a house and to move out. And guess what? We wouldn't be allowed to anyway. So you kind of had to what? My favorite word, unfortunately, not the action, but I like the way the word sounds, is we had to acquiesce. We acquiesced to whatever, and we didn't call it out because we tried calling it out before, but we either got spanked, we got grounded, we got the silent treatment for several weeks from our parents, not stuff we wanted to experience. And so I'm asking you right now, are you experiencing this type of situation in a current relationship? And when it happens, does it blindside you? Does it happen? When it does happen, does it trigger you? For me, it still has a tendency of being able to somewhat trigger me. Because I feel like it's been a situation that's happened for a large amount of my life, beginning as a young child, where that becomes the pattern of operation. So that becomes the pattern of operation that we end up living with, right? And so when we get into our adult life, a lot of times those things can happen without us. It kind of happens in a split second. The interesting part about it is that the mind works in different ways. And the mind begins to make us feel a certain way or think a certain way, and then we have certain emotions based on those thoughts. We go in and out of the feelings we had when we were a kid when this would happen. It's very interesting. And so in the next video, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the different emotions we go through after we call it out. After we call it out, we feel like we're able to call it out, or at least have a good conversation. Like the last time this happened to me, I literally just expressed myself as positively and as stress-free as possible, and it didn't work. And no matter what I said, even if I said good morning, I got a response back that was very negative and hostile. Okay, so it's interesting how this whole calling out of the poop in the pool becomes this entire defensive situation, and then we're dealing with somebody that's completely defensive, right? And it's hard to figure out how to even bring up what's happening, much less try to shine some light on the situation, get some clarity and some closure, and be able to calm the situation down. So in the next video, I'm going to be talking about the different emotions we go through and understanding that, as well as the defensiveness and how that plays a role in the situation. I hope you've liked this video. Stay tuned. Lots more videos coming up. And if you want to comment on this video, if you've been through this situation and you understand the concept of the poop in the pool and calling it out, what was your experience the last time you called someone out? Even if it was in a very calm, positive way, were you able to get your point across, or do you feel like it went round and round and nothing got resolved? I want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to live your true life.